Thank you. Nice to be here.
There we go. It's as large as it goes. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, I'm Kevin Deabler, principal and co-founder of Rhodey Architects, joined by
Katya Stassi.
and
Mike Delafave.
so we're happy to be here today talking about a very special project to us. Also on the call, and one of the attendees, very important one, is Dimitri Baskin with Passive House Construction, who without Dimitri wouldn't be here today as giving this presentation. So thank you again for the opportunity to design this cool project. And we call this presentation Proof of Concept, which sort of we can come back to and explain maybe after the presentation, but we're really proud of the many things that we were able to achieve on this project, on this site that had a lot of different constraints. It's again just a very proud moment to really show this project to more parts of the public that are curious about it. So thank you again for joining us today. You already heard me say who we are, and if we have to come back, we can do that on this slide.
Yeah.
We are talking about these three things. Mike, you want to?
So, we wanted to outline some of the learning objectives for today. So we really wanted to identify where our learning opportunities were during the design and construction process, really as a means for kind of increasing our awareness for low energy design. We also want to show a little bit of our understanding of the critical nature of mock-ups as a tool for learning and discovering the kind of finer details of passive house construction and the sequencing. And then finally, to talk a little bit more about the qualities and the benefits of passive house construction, not only from like a technical standpoint and resiliency, but also to touch on some of the health benefits and perspectives.
And Dimitri, I said I would put you on the spot, but here you are on the spot. Can you introduce yourself and maybe talk about how we first started working together?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Hi, everybody. Name is Dimitri Baskin, Passive House Construction. We had the fortunate opportunity to start working with Kevin when he started his firm, going back to like 2010, I guess, in our Alston project. We did a couple multifamily, it's a multifamily building, townhouse style. And at the time, LEED was all the rage. So we were doing it in those concepts, although didn't really, we didn't really go towards the full LEED certification, but we built in that, with that in mind. And since then we continued to work together on multiple projects, mill reno and projects in Cambridge, and kind of led up to this opportunity I had in West Roxbury, where I was able to acquire this lot and wanted to do something cool and innovative, and to really kind of challenge ourselves to see what we can do with it. And then, which I'll circle back to, I think Mike's note of saying it was proof of concept, because that was kind of the big thing is, can we do it? And if we do, does anybody care? Pretty much, as far as the market goes. So we could go more into that later.
Yeah. So thanks, Dimitri. On this slide, I think that the piece we wanted to make sure we reference here is that these projects don't happen without teamwork. This is actually a different model and something we'll talk about later. It's the next project, but it is important to talk about how teams work on projects. It's not a Kevin thing or a Mike thing or a Katya thing or a Dimitri thing. It's a team thing, including realtor, who would be responsible for communicating back and forth with buyers through the process. And the Brucewood project, we can go to the next slide now, was a spec delivery of 3 homes that Dimitri took the risk of purchasing the property fully and outright purchasing the land, coming up with a scheme to fit housing into this site, working with the community through that process. And we landed on 3 single-family lots as the best use of this particular chunk of undeveloped property. And that's what you're going to talk about mostly today. But as Dimitri mentioned, one of our first projects together was delivered in 2012, started in about 2009-10. So we've been at it as a team for a little while, which is also why we could take maybe a little bit more of an aggressive step and try some different things with the delivery of these 3 homes in West Roxbury. We're also going to mention that the kind of recognition that we've gotten from Brucewood is very important, especially the Wall Street Journal. Not a media outlet that talks a lot about sustainability, but is a lot more. And to have an ability to talk to over 30 million readers about sustainability and its benefits to the pocketbook of the buyers was again very much a piece of our proof of concept that sustainability is ready to spread widespread throughout the country. So, and then doesn't hurt to mention, we just received a Metropolis Award, and there I'll stop talking and doing any more of that. So most folks now in Massachusetts are, and I say folks on this call, architects, developers, builders, we lead the nation in our understanding of Passive House, I believe, and that's just because I live in Boston and we're proud and we have a chip on our shoulder that we're the best. But we have really learned a lot about Passive House. They don't know about it in other parts of the country, but this is a diagram we can come back to, and we explain it a little bit more in another slide. But this is kind of just a cool visual way of seeing all the aspects, and the sun in the upper right corner is really where it all begins and how we harness what's available to us and make it beautiful on the inside and comfortable.
So some of the things that we'll highlight, I think, as we go through the presentation a little bit more as we go through the future slides is, we'll talk about kind of triple glazed windows. We're going to talk about air tightness. We are using sun shading to optimize the heat gain or cooling. We talk about reduced thermal bridging, high insulation value, and then we will show you some images of how we're handling our energy recovery as well. So those are the sort of 5 principles that we deal with when it comes to Passive House: airtight construction, increased insulation value, high performance glazing, energy recovery and ventilation, as well as reduced thermal bridging. And I think I would say that on the surface, when we saw, we learned about Passive House through some partners in Maine, which we have a good relationship with.
Passive House didn't just become invented 5 years ago. It's been around for probably more than 20, 30 years. I help on the University of Maine Augusta Architecture School, the only one in Maine, and have for quite a long time. And our partner on this project, Opal, is a good design firm and Passive House consultant at that time.
Yeah.
Now Katya is a certified Passive House consultant that we are proud to talk through how we as a firm are continuing to add that type of expertise. But this concept of Passive House seemed like a far-flung thing, and it came from Germany and wasn't immediately adopted. However, building science has been around for quite a long time. and the way that the passive house projects were starting to happen were a lot of places like Maine where they're building second homes and things like that. So they're figuring it out, and it was just brought to our attention, and Dimitri was very willing to give it a shot because it had a little bit of that certification to it. We're not talking Energy Star, we're talking a real valid performance certification that focused on building science and construction techniques. So we brought it from the outer hills of Maine to Boston.
So the series of criteria that you see on the right-hand side of the page are benchmarks that we hit. So these are the numbers that we're focusing to achieve through energy modeling. And I will say that really the number that we may be most interested in is the air tightness number. And that number is a little hard to understand. And so if I just put it in a little perspective for you, so it's 0.6 ACH 50, which is air changes per hour at 50 pascals of pressure. And to put that in perspective for you, I live in a 100-year-old house, and my air changes per hour at 50 CH50 would be probably like 15 or 20. So living in New England, where we have a lot of old homes, many of our houses are quite leaky. So this gives you a sense of perspective as to a very old home versus what these homes are built towards in terms of air tightness. The code the current code is somewhere between is around like a 5. Many of you have probably used the HERS rater, and that is a number that they're usually looking to hit. So extremely airtight homes that we're building here. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of the design process, and then we'll get into some more of the kind of technical aspects of the project as well. So, so this is the site as we found it. It's on the corner of Brucewood and VFW Parkway, and it was a previously undeveloped lot. It was full of lots of overgrowth of invasive species. There's ledge outcroppings and also trash, and was a place where people would actually gather in the neighborhood after they were on the recreation fields nearby.
Teenagers drinking in the woods.
Basically.
Not that I know anything about that.
But what we found to be really interesting was that the site itself acts as a really fantastic buffer between the neighborhood grain of Brucewood Street, and then the high trafficked area, which is the VFW Parkway. So the other things that were kind of interesting that we wanted to pay attention to was the language of the houses that were across the street. So we studied those houses in proportion. We studied the characteristics that they have. They're all these kind of 1950s, 60s single family homes. And then there's a really nice collection of these ledge outcroppings that are on the site as well. So as we get into this, we're really respecting those aspects of the place. The next thing is that we wanted to approach the architecture with this idea of siblings, not identical twins. So although each one of the houses are virtually identical, with the exception of the one at the bottom of the hill here, which has a little bit of a different garage because of the topography, they're more or less the same. The windows are generally in the same locations, but we wanted to create a variety of forms and a variety of connections to the site. So each lot does not necessarily need to respond to the same aspects of the site. So there was these hidden forces that we began to uncover to make that each home had to react to. So how do we do that? So what we did is we took this idea of siblings into our model shop, which is where we are right now in our model shop. And we began to subtract from these wood blocks different ways to approach the roof forms. So this is some test blocks that you see here, but we wanted the forms to be familiar we wanted to be able to shed water. We wanted to have the opportunity for solar. But we also wanted to create something that was contemporary. So we have the three houses in the model, and this is the three houses here. And then on the bottom of the page, you'll see that we wanted to enlarge the scale of models so that we could study not only the connectivity and the proportions of the spaces within the homes, but we would also be able to understand the connectivity to the outside. So this is a large scale model with nice thick chipboard and foam core to study the kind of connectivity of the lower volume and then look at the other spaces that are on the sleeping volume. And then also to study the connectivity between those two floors as it relates to this very large south-facing window, which creates lots of light to come into not only the first floor, but the second floor. So I'm going to bring you through a little bit of a buildup of our process. So this is a one F6000 zone, according to the zoning. So each one of these lots are by right at 6,000 square feet. And then we studied the zoning envelope requirements. So these are the setbacks, 20 in the front, 20 in the back, and 10 on each side. Again, these are as of right homes, which anybody who's built in the city of Boston before would understand that almost never happens. Everything seems to go through a zoning process.
And I'll just make the point that, you know, in a site that's much wider or given more flexibility with how you orient your building, we had none of that available to us. I think all we really could do was fit a home of this size, these kind of like little ice cube forms here onto the site. So it was given to us. If you have the ability, you obviously would be positioning your house in a more optimal position. So we'll show them more of that.
So we extruded the floor plates per the zoning envelope. So we are meeting the setbacks. We're also maximizing the amount of square footage that we can by right. And then, you know, I think as we began to look at passive house, we didn't necessarily need to create passive house around every space. So the spaces that you live in are the passive house envelope, but the garage, for example, is not. So a garage is kind of lesser engineered.
And I'll also make a point here that in the passive house certification, one of the little boxes that you check off does not include beauty, you know? It does not include good, well-designed, proportioned buildings. It has nothing to do with that. So actually, this is what the first passive houses would look like. And if you probably hunt for them in Germany or in parts of Maine, they probably actually look like boxes because you were struggling with how you kind of like work through all the modeling and all the openings and all the thick walls that you have to build. So we really wanted to work against, you know, work towards a different outcome.
I'll also note too that these envelopes are on the south side of the lots. And then we create a contextual form. So we have gables that are formed as a reaction to the single family homes that are on the block. And then we began to create distinction. So what we've done here is we've taken the ridge lines and we've blended them from the two existing fabrics that exist. So the house that's up here on top of the hill, this ridge line is aligned with the street grid. And then the house at the bottom is aligned with the VFW Parkway. And we simply blended the ridge lines with one another to create variety. So then we created further distinction with the roofs of the garages. And then we began to carve and create more identity. So you'll see that, especially in the materiality, the ground level is treated with a different material than the living level, which is the living level, and then the sleeping levels are on the second floor. So we're sort of identifying the differences in program based on these carves that we've done on the building. And then furthermore, we've added these entry porches, which are kind of common characteristic of the other homes that are on Brucewood. We've done solar analysis. to better understand which way the sun was going to react on our buildings. And then using that analysis, we created the large opening, which is our what we call our really wow moment when you enter into the homes. And that's one thing that I'll kind of maybe express a little bit more about working with Dimitri, is that he really challenges us to kind of push the envelope of what we think a great space can be. And he's very interested in that moment when you enter into your home. What is that wow moment? What do you feel right immediately as you come into where you live? And then after that solar analysis and adding the window placements, we were using modeling to effectively create shading devices. So these are a collection of shading devices that are on the homes themselves. And we do that working with Opal, our passive house modeler. So just to go through the floor plans really quick. So the living level is sort of rooted in the ground. We have this kind of secondary concept of rooted in the ground and floating in the trees. So you enter in through that porch. There's a living room to your right. When you enter, there's a great connective stair that is up along the window that we just showed, with a dining room. And then the kitchen is in the rear of the building as well. And then we actually tuck all the mechanical spaces on the north side of the building as well, which we'll show you in a minute, but they're very kind of hidden from public space. And then on the second level, you'll see that connective stair, 2 stories, along with 4 bedrooms wrapping around the perimeter of a hallway. So I'll take you through some of the craft and execution of the building. So these are some images of the slab that was poured out on site. So these are all slab on grade. And this is our detail up in the upper left corner, showing how much insulation we actually have. So there's 6 inches of EPS insulation, which runs continuously around the building. There's a slab which sits on that insulation, and it's very important for us to isolate the slab from the ground. This is so that there's no thermal bridging that happens between the ground and the slab above. Now, remember, that slab is taking advantage of the large windows that we have. So you have the sunlight coming into the home. It's heating up the slab, and it's sort of radiating that heat up through the building. So we wanted to make sure that there's no cold transfer between that slab to take the heat out of it. So not only that, but it's also has a very thick membrane that runs underneath. And this is lapped up around the insulation, which you can see here. This is that vapor barrier. And then that vapor barrier is then taped to our sheathing system, which is, we use a zip system in this case. So paying attention to the details is a really, really important aspect of constructing these. And with someone like Dimitri, who's on site every day, making sure that all the details are executed well via his subcontractors is a really important aspect of passive house. So again, we're using zip system, and then it's just a traditional, pretty traditional framing, and I'll show you some more pictures of that in a minute. But we also wanted to talk about how important it is to partner with great craftsmen. I think that in this case, we were very, very fortunate to have a great collection of framers, builders, people who had done zero energy homes before, a collection of great individuals who knew how to tape properly. They knew the kind of attention to detail that we needed. So this is one of our craftsmen. This is Makai. What's really great is we got to know all the individuals on site by name. We learned a lot from them. They learned from us. We very much saw it as a collaboration with the workforce. Something that we take great pride in, and we learn just as much as they learn from us. So this is our window detail. This is Makai doing a window mock-up. So we installed the window. We brought the team out. We studied how we needed to tape it properly. We had the representatives from Sika there to help us walk through how to install the tape properly. And we wanted to make sure that we did this on one window first before we attacked all the rest of the windows. This is also a really great opportunity for us to do a collection of troubleshooting, ask questions, and really make sure that we're doing it properly.
We even tried to line up tape joints that would be invisible with the mullions, just so that there was perfect unity throughout the project. That's a complete joke. So
there's also a couple of slide pictures here too to show. This is a window header where we worked with the guys on site to create this insulation layer within the header to help to reduce some more of the thermal bridge. These were all built on the floor and then sort of lifted up into place. Great taping jobs of the window bucks, which surround each window and act as blocking for the future siding. You can see them placed on here. They actually built these on the ground and then placed them up around the window. And then also just to talk about the framing. So the framing on all of these homes are actually 2x8s at 24 on center, which allows for greater depth in the stud bays, but also allows for a more spread out cadence of the studs so that we can get increased insulation. Is sort of an interesting aspect of that collaboration with our structural engineers. We explained this to him, and he almost laughed because in some ways it's sort of structurally overbuilt. And the same thing with the roof. So the roofs are 24-inch TGIs that are 24 on center as well. And then this is one of the last couple slides about the construction, but again, we find it to be very, very important to do mock-ups on site. So this is a window mock-up of the siding that the craftsmen were able to do for us. We wanted to make sure that we had the correct overhangs and that the proportions of the lap siding was correct. Also to be able to just walk through how to clad each window was really, really useful to go over the flashing details. This meant a lot to not only us to know that the way it was going to be executed was well crafted and per the drawings, but also to make sure that everybody on site kind of knew how we were thinking about how it would be done, but also to get a little bit of feedback from them about how they could improve the details. So that was very, very useful. All the buildings are 100% electric. So to just take you through that, we have solar panels on the roofs of each home. The slide in the center here, this is our energy recovery unit, right off of that powder room that I showed you in plan. We have a high efficiency hot water tank. We have mini splits, which provide the cooling in the soffit or in between the joist bays of the first floor. There's actually a ducted mini split, which is on the second floor as well, which distributes each one of the bedrooms. There's an electric exterior window shade, which helps to shield the sun in the summertime. And then we're using induction cooking as well.
You know, if we have time, we'll turn it over in a minute to questions, but the homeowners have reported a lot of benefits to their own physical and mental health because of the extra comfort that you have. We breeze through a lot of the thick wall details, but those thick walls create such acoustic separation that you're offered a form of silence that you never really get when you're in the city. You're always bombarded with noise and stimulation. So the toning down the noise and then amplifying natural daylight and the comfort of the air. They're saying that their allergies were gone within a few weeks. They do a lot of cooking and the smells are not lingering through the house because of the ventilation and kinds of things that daylight resolve a little bit on, you know, anxiety and depression were a little bit more of an uplifting experience we heard when we asked the homeowners about their experiences.
And then to touch a little bit on the materiality on the outside. So we're using two different types of siding. I sort of mentioned a little bit earlier, but the lower level is clad in boral, which is a great product that we sort of endorse it a lot. We're using it a lot here at Rhodey. So it's a poly ash product, which is kind of a byproduct of the steel industry. But we like it for a lot of really great reasons. One is that it can touch the ground, it's mold resistant, it's insect resistant, and then it also gave us the opportunity to paint it because it does not come field painted. So we were able to select a color that was very much related to some of these landscape walls that you see, the ledge that was on site. We wanted to create a very natural color tones to the base, and it's very much like rooted in the ground. And then floating above that through a series of kind of cantilevers and thick edge lines, we have some tongue and groove cedar, which has a little bit of knots in it. So it's sort of second grade cedar, and we got this from a mill up in Maine. So we're pretty excited to be able to use that. The cedar is then sealed, it was bleached and then double sealed on site. And if you were to go by the homes today, you can see that they are just starting to kind of weather and gray and actually turn a little bit brown. They're kind of in an interesting state right now. I think we say that the cedar is in a little bit of an adolescence. But it will age a little bit more over time.
Now, these houses are drinking in the woods.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Yes, they're adolescents drinking.
Yeah.
And then give you a little bit of a sense of the finished landscape. So again, some really great site walls that were constructed out of natural stone. We tried to keep as many of the mature trees as possible. So I think I'll talk a little bit more about the approval process here. These homes are in a greenbelt overlay. So we did have Parks Department review, and as a result of that, some BPDA approval as well. The BPDA didn't have a lot to say really about the architecture, but the folks at the planning at the Parks Department had a lot more to say about how we were approaching the landscape. So, you know, we do have a collection of really nice landscape that's happening with some of the plantings, but some of the things that are really great is that we actually nestled the buildings around a collection of these ledge outcroppings. So this is this house here on the corner, and this is the grotto, which exists just off the kitchen. So there's actually a private space that exists behind this piece of ledge. And the reviewers at the Parks Department were very interested in our maintaining of ledge. So that aspect of the natural qualities of the site was very important to them, and as a result, really important to us. So this gives you a sense of that form kind of floating above the ledge. And then, of course, we're creating uplifting space. So these are great light-filled spaces. This is that double height space with the really wonderful curtain wall and the staircase. Really great detail, light fill. I'd say this is like 11 o'clock in the morning on a good summer day. And then this is the kitchen in the rear, but it gives you a sense of that connectivity to the ledge and the natural environment surrounding the houses. Again, kind of attention to detail. So these are these screens that run by the entry, and you can see the plant life that exists. I think our hope is that this plant begins to kind of grow up this lattice. This horizontality of the lattice is then taken into the inside, where we created a series of shelves and a china cabinet. This is the homeowner's collection of artifacts. And then this is that great stair that we have going up the side of the big glass wall. And then the last thing that we'll talk about here is, I think we'll say it's a little bit about understanding code. So we actually don't have a handrail that exists on the side here up against the glass. This is tempered glass, and it's also not a guardrail. So these treads actually project through and into the near the windows, not creating more of a gap that's less than 4 inch, that 4-inch gap. And that allowed us to not have a guardrail on this side, which allows for more light to kind of come through the space. And again, kind of working with craftsmen, our contractor had a great metal worker that we worked hand in hand with about all the details of this stair. He took quite a lot of pride in putting this together. And then, you know, the last slide is really about some of the metrics, but I think as Kevin was hinting on, we really want to just focus on the health and the comfort benefits. You know, so the improved indoor air quality is extremely important.
We're, I think we want to kind of cut it here and let there be some questions so we can talk through that. But I feel like why we talk about that is, you know, obviously Dimitri is a kind of a special version of a classic developer. But our profession right now is having to explain a lot of the regulations that are afoot in Massachusetts. And why do I have to do this? That's a sort of a thing that we are getting into, but we really wanted to get ahead of that and here and say that there's actually a market for healthy homes and high performance, and especially in Boston, greater Boston, Massachusetts, and New England. Most, I think, buyers are well aware that you have choices now of how the homes were built. So getting ahead of the curve, understanding how we as design professionals talk to our clients often, and for Rudy, it's often developers building. We really are going to spend a lot more time talking about how you can sell your product to the market customers who maybe don't even know what passive house is, but if you can explain to them that they're going to be better ventilated, healthier, filtered air, there is a real benefit to going through the process of passive house. So thank you all for listening to this, and we really look forward to any questions at this point.
Thank you, Mike, Kevin, and Katya. Do we have any pressing questions? I'm just going to open it up right now to the group. Just unmute yourself and well, I'll start. And then I think, you know, people will become less bashful. You know, this was an investment, and I'd like to understand from the developer's point of view, you know, without getting into numbers, the profitability of this. Was this a huge stretch? Were people willing to pay more? And then after that, it'd be interesting to understand the reaction from the neighborhood and this type of development going in.
So I think the big struggle I have with this concept was that brokers and the market in general, appraisers and banks, they all look at it as dollar per square foot. And they don't have a way yet of quantifying the value of energy savings, the value of comfort, the value of pretty much all of these intangibles that we provide, and some tangible stuff. So the struggle is that, you know, it's hard to finance them, you know, to build them, because you're building at a higher cost. And then buyers will have a harder time financing them on the purchase side because they're not going to be dollar per square foot equivalent to its neighbor. So this project, because there's a proof of concept, and I felt like, you know, we need to have something out there to show that there's a value to it. So this project was done out of pocket, the whole thing. The buyers who bought the houses, there were no mortgage contingencies on it. Although I think 2 of the buyers did end up getting a mortgage, just a higher down payment. My target for these homes is to be at about 20 to 30% over market. So probably spent more on these than warrants for the market. But I felt like it was important. We don't really know where that line is. You're doing it first out the gate. So we kind of overbuild to hit the mark. And so, we a lot of lessons learned. So yeah, so they were fine. The it was a great concept, and really what it just tells me is that we have to do it more at scale, which is why you see passive houses in Massachusetts, at least. You'll see that a lot of rolled out in multifamily buildings. You're getting a lot more scale. There's a lot of upfront costs with the architectural design, engineering of those things. Like, Kevin kind of brushed over the fact that, yeah, we did do 3 years of zoning on this property. So it's not it was an as of right houses, but we did 3 years of zoning to get it as of right. It's like a overnight success kind of thing. But so you need to have a lot of volume of inventory to justify those upfront costs, essentially what you come at. So that's kind of why this next development we're doing, we're taking this concept over 20 houses. And that's affords a lot more opportunities and starts kind of bringing that price point down because you're spreading it over more houses, more economies of scale.
That's right. I think that the zoning is a natural issue we all face here as architects in the city. We know that building more housing is important. However, even at this time, this is 2018, we're really kind of in the middle of that process or towards the end of it. But there were a couple years in there, but foggy beginnings of exactly what are we going to commit to as a process going forward, and ending up with 3 singles. Actually, the neighborhood looked at a couple of different options that we put out there of 3 two families that were going to require some appeals and things like that. But once we kind of heard a little bit of maybe resistance to that, this is a purely single family zone and area, we realized that that would mean a lot of months of work to get those things approved that way, and resulting in single family footprints meant that we really had to be cautious about exactly what we're delivering. And so there, you would say high end singles, but still spec. And Demetria explained that this was all out of pocket built on a concept. So it is no surprise that even the lack of housing would produce good sale prices on this. But still, they needed to see what they were getting, and they were all buyers that understood data and how a passive house works.
One of the other kind of interesting aspects of the houses themselves is that the neighbors here were basically forever were staring out their front doors at what was an undeveloped lot, and I think that we wanted to make sure that we were sort of doing right by them in that way, that we were giving them a project that they sort of met the quality of the street that they had been so used to seeing. So what was really great is that during the construction process, we actually felt that there was a really great buzz from the neighbors. They would talk to us all the time. Every time we come out to the site, hey, what's going on? What's happening next? I think that one of the women who actually lives across the street helped us pick the color. So that was sort of great because they kind of sort of helped them feel like they were really part of the process. They're very respectful of the neighborhood fabric as well. So this is certainly not cramming, and I think that as we got more into the process, I think we realized that the neighbors were actually very, very happy with the result.
So I have a question. Or is it okay for me to jump in?
Can I just go to Eric Reinhardt first, Rhiannon, and then we can circle back to you?
Sure.
Eric had a question in the chat. Eric, do you want to unmute yourself?
I can. I was just curious about the, you mentioned that how you, specifically, how did you accommodate the ventilation at the cooktop? And and I'm also curious about the laundry. Is there anything special there, or you relying on?
So the cooktop is not ventilated. It's an induction range, so it's not required. So they're recirculating hoods.
But I'll tell you though, in practicality, so each house, we allowed, I call them semi-custom homes because we allow customizations. So like the middle house, for example, he did put he wanted to have a hood range. And he actually paid for the engineers to recalculate the numbers to make sure that we were consistent, took the energy consumption of that out of someplace else. But the ERV that we put in was a Zender unit, and they're made to exhaust cooking as well. But honestly, after putting it in and looking at it and seeing what that means, it's literally just a little filter that you put it inside that goes inside one of the tubes, which I'm not sure I would do again. I think that in the next development, I think there's a value in having, at least for grease, something to, even a recirculating vent for grease exhaust. I think would be good. Otherwise, you're just really stressing the unit out, I think. But intuitively, it just doesn't seem like it's a good idea, but it's meant to do that. So that's kind of what we did for this first run. And I'm not sure how, one of the buyers is a single family, is a single man living by himself, doesn't do any cooking, and the other guys, they're a couple, they do cooking, but they seem to love it. It's been 3 years, and they absolutely love it. But I think that for practicality purposes, I think we would put a recirculating in the future ones. And as far as the washer dryer, they're just the ventless kind.
Thank you.
Rhiannon?
I have specific question for Dimitri. Obviously, as real estate developers, you're taking on a huge amount of risk. And so I'm curious what inspired you and what your research was showing you about passive homes, and if there was any market information that you uncovered that gave you confidence to move forward with this sort of project, which I think is really quite amazing.
Well, honestly, I went to Kevin after I bought this lot, and I said, I want to do something hard, and I want to do something challenging, and I want to do something cool, because I'm a big believer that challenging projects bring smart people and motivated people to the table. And that's, for me, is very exciting. I like working with people who are passionate and who are truly engaged in the process, not just the next thing, not just kind of spitting out product. So, and Kevin's like, I didn't really care to do lead because I wanted to do something that was really good for the buyer, for the end user, which honestly, I don't really feel that lead kind of gets us there. Lead is a lot of, paperwork, and we've done it before in other bigger projects, but so this was an opportunity to do proof of concept, take a risk. There was no market for it. I don't know if there was. It was just pure risk. But it was fun, and that's kind of why we did it. And I felt like, what, at the end of the day, I could still sell a house. It's still a house, but my goals were to reach a certain milestone and to see it. And honestly, by the time we got to the third house for sale, so all these houses actually pre-sold at the first one, ironically, the first one that sold was the middle house. Before that's when it was just we were just taking the trees down. And the other two houses sold at framing. So there's still opportunities for even customizations in that respect for interior stuff. And after those went, then I have a wait list now of about 24 people for looking for the next, because what I've learned is that it's a very specific niche, but those who want to live in a passive house will seek out passive houses. They're very different than other houses. And I can't wait till I can build myself a passive house. So
yeah, that's really interesting. And I also think too, in New England, we have more educated consumers, especially in environmental impacts. And it's just wonderful to hear that you have a waiting list of 20 people. I think that's
Yeah, but I know it's a waiting list, but
Yep.
real estate is still, specific to location, and hopefully they'll follow to the next project, but I'm not counting on it. I think as we get more passive homes rolled out and people buy into the concept that it's not a gimmick and it's a legitimacy towards it, it's not just spray foam and high energy efficient appliances kind of thing.
Mhm.
There's a lot to be said about quality of living and comfort of home, which this provides. And we're going to be leaning into that a lot more in the next project. But it's hard to sell the intangible stuff. So that's kind of, that's a struggle, really. But
No, thank you.
And I'll probably apologize to Dimitri for not explaining the risks to taking this on. But on kind of like maybe a warm note is that, we actually kind of like each other as people, and Rhodey is a team. So working with Mike and Katya, and if anybody just kind of, I hope knows us, that we really want to have a good time while we're doing this. And if the constraints don't really matter quite as much, if you just kind of trust the team and the process that you go through. So it really is about the quality of people that you're working with, and going into things unknown with a partner that you don't know is certainly risky, and I don't know that the outcome would be the same here, but it really, I think, proves the value of relationships and what we do.
Thank you.
We were thinking about wrapping up around 1. We have one more question here in the chat from Sophia. Sophia, do you want to come back on and ask?
Yeah, so I was just kind of curious in regards to when you eventually do build like a development of 20 houses. Like, I guess in this presentation, a lot of the passive house features were isolated to one single house, even though it was a set of 3. But would you eventually see houses almost interacting with each other in regards to like sunlight reflecting off of a building, or maybe the color of a house next door and how that interacts with the house adjacent to it, or wind systems flowing through? I don't know how far it's evolved at this point, but I was just kind of curious if that's in the works or something you've experienced.
So actually, if you look at the model that's in front of us in this photo, this is our next development. It's in Stoughton, Massachusetts. And the scheme is really set up. We went through a pretty extensive site analysis and identified different characteristics of each lot. Began to think about what kind of home wanted to be placed on each lot in terms of its solar orientation, how much topography it would have to deal with, creating a little bit more of a variety. The interesting thing is that at the Brucewood Homes, we're really dealing with kind of suburban / urban conditions that we were able to react to, a series of parameters that we could use as inspiration. On the Stoughton lot, there's not as many of those kind of urban parameters that we're maybe used to building in the city. So we began to kind of find other parameters, other things on the site that were going to help to control design. So these are those homes out in front, and actually standing behind, those are images of the houses behind us in the photo. So we had established a flat house, which is a single-story house that existed on the more flatter topography. There's a stacked house, which is a 2-story home. This was placed on the pieces of the lots of land that have the most the hardest area to build in as it relates to setbacks and wetland overlays and things like that. And then we were looking at a split house as well, which is a kind of multi-tiered home that really kind of anchors itself into steep topography. These are all under design, and the scheme has actually changed a little bit as we're going through the process with the town. And
we're really looking at the process of developing in a sensitive area like this. We still need good housing in Massachusetts. We're going to have to be creative about where we put that. There are some, natural resources on this. So we've actually really contracted the footprint of this development and are really approaching the work with much more of an ecological eye due to the sensitive nature of what's here, but also really try to think through the experience of living in this kind of precious forest, if you will, and how passive house, when you do orient all the buildings a little bit more towards one another, you can kind of see it starting to happen here. What's that experience going to be like? So I guess just stay tuned for how this goes. Sophia will hopefully prove another concept about community living in this.
Yeah, and I do just want to add that the buildings actually do interact with each other. They are included in, like, you do an energy model for each individual home, but it includes the homes around it. So the shadows that are cast from one home onto another actually are part of the shading analysis, and they're actually part of the cooling reduction, which is kind of cool. The first house shades the second one, which shades the third. And they also, the effects on the wind patterns as it moves around one house to another, that is also accounted for and included in the energy model.
Gotcha. Very cool. Thank you.
Do we have any final comments from the presentation team?
Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to talk about it.
Yeah, we're very honored that you reached out to us, and it's been really exciting for us to continue to present this to not only our colleagues in the design field, but to see that these homes are really starting to be noticed more around New England and actually internationally now. So we're really excited about that, and so happy that we got to talk today.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
I just want to wish everybody a happy holiday. Watch your BSA calendar emails. We do have a presentation that's going to be promoted pretty soon, January 15th. It's going to be a copywriter and how a copywriter can help you and your practice with promotion, things like that. Should be a good presentation. We're also working towards another designer showcase for January as well. So we have things coming up to hit the ground running in the new year. And as always, please reach out if you want to start to work with us on the planning side, because we can always use some additional assistance. Rhiannon, Matt, do you have any final comments?
No, I thought that this was really interesting. I mean, it gives me inspiration to what's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Especially in Massachusetts, because I think the design is really contemporary and forward thinking, but then it has the added benefit of really well-being and wellness, which we're seeing as a strong theme that homeowners want.
Yeah,
So I can,
We're even leaning into that a little more for the next development too.
Yeah.
Being a low impact development and really kind of extolling those concepts of health and wellness. So
That's
it'd be
great.
pretty cool.
That's
Very
great.
cool.
All right, everyone. Thanks for
Thank you
joining
all.
us. Thank you again to Rhodey. Thank you, Dimitri, and happy holidays. We'll see you in the new year.
Thank you.